To go. Run him. Stay on. Got him, boys. Angela, that's a sack on the ball. Good job.
Take me back into another time when we were still in love, a different life. It's a different life.
All right, folks, welcome to the Brothers Blitz podcast. Woo! Yeah, that's right. Where it is 3rd and 10, and we are coming right at you. That's right. We know it's a passing down. But we are going to be talking about the divisional round of the playoffs.
Yeah, we are.
Here, and 3 out of the 4 games were actually close, so much different than the wild card round. Here, so we're gonna run through them all and give you our reactions to everything, and then probably just do a little bit of what we expect for the championship games coming up. So should be pretty good. It was a great weekend, though.
It was. Yeah, minus the with the Ravens game, which I guess we can start with first. That was the least boring. It was interesting in the first half, and then the Ravens were like, "Oh wait, actually, we're much better than you, Houston. No offense, but we're better than you." And then just kind of ran away with it.
Yeah. That one definitely looked a lot like we haven't played in a while, and things were like just not quite there. And then once the second half hit, they were back,
and then they kind of picked themselves up in the second half, and it was clear like the Ravens are a built team for the Super Bowl. They've seemingly been on that doorstep for years, barring injuries, which has held them back. And Houston's still a team full of really young players, mostly rookies, and they're just up and coming. So the result is not surprising to me in the end. And Lamar only threw 150 yards, but man, he looked fresh as hell on the ground too. Good Lord.
I know. The way he can move around defenders is insane.
Yeah.
It's unnatural. I mean, it technically is natural because he's doing it, but it just seems unnatural.
It seems unfair. It was like watching a video game cheat code.
Yeah. So that's going to be
That team still scares the living daylights out of me.
Yeah, the Ravens do seem like this year, it does seem like, how do you stop them? Because it's like they're so good on so many different levels, and for a bit, the Texans, their blitzing strategy was at least containing everything.
Right.
There, but after a while, it's hard to keep blitzing that much.
Yeah.
It was the most ever in D'Amico Ryan's coaching tenure ever, like defensive coordinator and as a coach.
And they also adjusted to it because they started doing like more of those option plays for Lamar to just take it if he saw the blitz coming.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped, and they adjusted as the game went on, which is what good coordinators and good coaches do.
Yeah, basically what the Texans needed to have happen, and sometimes as underdogs, you usually need some weird things to happen. They had one thing, they got the punt return, got one of the weird things. But what they needed was a couple of those blitzes to cause turnovers. And it just, and that was probably really the biggest win. Was before they got to adjust, they at least didn't turn the ball over when those blitzes were happening. So
Texas got a few sacks, but you can only keep Lamar down for so long.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like you said, eventually they adjusted, and then it became different. And and they just didn't have. The Texans are. In some ways, like the Texans shouldn't even have been there. Not that they should that they didn't earn it, but just like nobody expected it. It's a young team, that's rebuilding. So I just don't think
quarterback, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Especially at one point, when the Jaguars were 8-3 and in control of the AFC's number 1 seed. No way were you thinking, like 10 weeks ago that Houston would have been in the second round.
Yeah,
facing Baltimore.
Yeah.
We thought that was going to be Jags Ravens at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So, but if you're a Ravens fan though, you just got to be it really is like if you don't get to the Super Bowl this year, you gotta be like, well, I mean, what do we got to do? I mean, this is like the
Right,
most
right,
complete team we've had. Um,
right.
I mean, honestly, I think you could probably make the argument that this is probably the most complete team they've ever had. I mean, even with their other Super Bowl teams.
Right,
I
because
mean,
those teams had holes as well. Because like
yeah,
the first Ravens team, back in the 2000s, had to have this historically
yeah,
elite defense to win it all. Because we all remember that offense was one of the most boring things to
yeah,
watch in
yeah,
the world.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I
Uh,
mean. Like, yeah, sure, the defense was, just yeah, an amazing level of talent, but the offense was just there to not screw it up for the
yeah,
defense,
right. And
basically.
then with those Flacco teams, like it took Flacco not being Joe Flacco for 4 weeks, where he
Yeah.
was just somehow turnover free, which he never did again. He
Yeah.
had never done that before over a 4-game stretch, and he never did it again. It was just like in that pocket, for some reason, he was just perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And so this
So,
one just feels like the most like they've got kind
yeah,
of just
everything in place.
everything. Yeah, and everything's been together for a while, right? Not just like this
Right,
random, just like Joe Flacco went out of his mind for a minute,
right.
kind of a thing. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I you know,
It's
it,
hard. It's hard to see a way to beat them. It really is.
yeah, yeah, and that's the tough one. So I mean, we'll
Yep.
see. I mean, we'll see what the Chiefs got. The Chiefs sometimes know how to just, you know, make people sad. As Bills
They do.
fans,
They do.
I mean, it's kind of
Right.
jumping around, but we might as well just talk about the other AFC team anyway.
Let's do AFC, and then the
I
NFC.
mean,
That game was. If you're a Bills fan,
yeah,
now you're really going like, what the hell do we have
yeah,
to do
yeah,
to beat this effing team in the
exactly.
playoffs?
Actually, I think I have an impression of a Bills fan. I've been working on it
Oh
from the
yeah,
game.
sure.
Yeah, so
Let me
here's my
see.
impression of a Bills fan from yesterday. Ah! That's my
Yeah.
impression. That's because
They showed some shots, and there was a fan who just had his face buried
yeah,
in his hands, and then they showed a shot. A kid looked like he was like maybe 12, 13 years
yeah,
old, just bawling his
yeah.
eyes
And
out.
I thought, man, able to run the ball so well,
So well.
I thought towards the end of the game it was just gonna be like they were just gonna be able to run over everybody, run over them
Yeah.
for the rest of the game. Like I thought they were going to be able to just basically ice the game and just run everything out because I just figured the defense was going to get so tired with the
Right.
run, which I guess is a credit to the Chiefs too that they kind of
They
figured it
did,
out.
because
But
especially, like later in that fourth quarter, you mentioned that you didn't watch the last little bit. Was that the Chiefs started stacking the box, and the Bills were throwing it, and it was accurate still, but the Bills started dropping passes there near the end.
yeah,
There was a tough one that Sherfield dropped. I mean, it was a tough pass, but like he had both of his hands on it. He should have gotten his hands under it. And then on that last drive, that ended up being the missed field goal. Josh Allen threw a dime to Stephon Diggs that
yeah,
just went
yeah,
right through his
yeah,
hands. And I was
yeah,
just like, holy crap, how do you miss
yeah.
that?
And then it's like,
Who knows what would have happened, because that still had like 7.5, 8 minutes left on the clock. So
no,
the
I
Chiefs
was.
very could have easily gone down and scored
And it's
again.
like,
But
I was watching the game with a friend, and when they at the top of the broadcast when they were talking about the injuries to both their kicker and punter, she was like, "Oh my gosh, like both of them like have injuries and stuff." It's like, "Oh, we'll see if that has an effect." And it's like, did it have an effect on Bass? I mean, it seems like that was really wide right.
yeah, it was. That was so weird though. It was like it was heading like
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
down the middle, and then all of a sudden it just corked.
yeah,
Like, was it the way he kicked it? Was it the wind? Was it a combination of both?
yeah.
It was so
And
bizarre, and poor wide right. It was. I was like,
yep, I
I
know,
literally
I
shouted,
know.
"Oh no, Scott Norwood!"
I know
when I saw
exactly,
that happen.
exactly. I know, and it's like also when you're talking about like a Bills fan, like what do we have to do? You know, when you're saying that, it's like I mean, it's like you even got them to fumble out of the end zone and get that
Out of
one
the end zone,
possession
that
thing.
was so
I
crazy.
mean, that was such a huge play. You
It
know, because otherwise
was
they go up by 2 scores. You know, if they
right,
score a touchdown there, right? So then it's just
right.
like and it's like now you suddenly get the ball back. You think, all right, like I think if you're a Bills fan at that point, you're like, maybe this is our year. Like
This is our year,
just
right?
swung our
Finally.
way suddenly,
Right.
and
And then they didn't do anything on that ensuing drive. I think they actually went 3 and out on
Yeah.
that drive.
Yeah, and it's like the first half. I mean, they were moving it, and even in the third quarter too. It's just like, but they only got. Did they only get the one touchdown in the second half? The Bills?
No, it was 2.
It was 2. Okay.
I believe. Yeah. Because I think it was 10-10 at half.
Hold on, let me double check. See, now I can't remember. See, they were actually all close games, so now it's hard to remember.
Yeah. I thought it was going to turn into like a full blown shootout. Like I thought we were going to end up like 41.
I did feel like that. I know.
Yeah.
No, yeah, the Bills only got the one. Yeah, because they were up 17-13 at half.
Oh, that's right.
They got the touchdown in the third. Yeah, and then the Chiefs got 2 touchdowns, one in the third, one in the fourth.
Yeah. And the Bills kept moving the ball. They just couldn't finish off these drives.
Yeah, so that was kind
what
of
happened. Because they had like almost 400 yards of offense. Like, jeez.
Yeah.
Like when you have that much, you should be scoring like You should be scoring like 30 points.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's what happens when you can't finish off drives. And like, I wonder if it's like a mental thing against the Chiefs now in the playoffs with the Bills.
It could be. I mean, I think that stuff does have an effect. I don't
It
think
does, because there's no way it can't. Like at some point, there's no way it can't.
It's especially now. Now it's just got to be like, we had them at home. I mean, now obviously the Bills did still have a bunch of injuries.
Right, their secondary is still decimated.
But it's like still, but it was there. You had the opportunities, They were there. So it's not even like, oh, we had a bunch of injuries and the Chiefs steamrolled us because of it. It was like, no, you had the opportunity to win this game. You were at home. I mean, it's just like, and I don't.
And at one point they were flat out outplaying them.
Yeah.
You had them dead to rights. You were up 17-13 and you had the ball at one point. You could have put them away and you didn't.
Yeah, they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. And that's where you wonder if there is that mental block, like if that comes into play, like that tension when it starts getting that close and it starts getting later in the game, you're like, oh, we can do it. But it's like you start clamming up more instead of playing more loose, and then maybe you drop that pass, because or you miss that field goal because it's just like, I can do it, and it's like everything gets really tight. I mean,
there were a couple of Josh Allen hesitation moments where like earlier in the game he was making that decision and it was working, and then he just seemed to hesitate just a little bit coming down the stretch, and I think that was part of it. Of like, oh God, we're losing to the Chiefs again. Oh Lord, we're losing to the Chiefs again.
And it's like, and we've got a chance. We've got a chance though.
That.
So you're like, don't screw it up. And then just like things just get a little bit off. And man, I mean, it was, it was, like I said, obviously we had a great weekend of games, and that was quite the topper though. I mean,
it was.
It is
I
great.
texted a friend at one point because that was such a good game. I was like, because he texted me about the 49ers game. He goes, that was a great game. And I said, well, for me, it wasn't.
Oh,
and
gosh.
So I texted him last night. I was like, oh, is this how neutral fans feel watching the Packers 49ers game? Like, as a neutral fan, I'm just enjoying this wild
you're like, oh, cool. There's another lead change. You're like, oh, that's fun. Because it is. Because it's like during that, when it's your team, it's stressful. But when it's not your team, you're like, yeah, this is football. This is what it's about. Like, this is what
this is what the playoffs are about, too. Like, two top-notch teams going at it.
Yeah, and it was. It's
pretty much.
It is great when a game lives up to its billing, So that's always.
And it's not your team that you have to suffer and stress through.
I mean, now obviously Bills fans don't care that it lived up to the billing, but now,
they don't.
I mean, I do feel bad for them at this point.
I do too.
Like, God, this sucks, man. Because you do got to be like, what? Why? Just why?
It's like the way they lose too.
Yeah,
that's where you're also like, what did we do to the sports universe to deserve this?
And it's just like, this was like the year too, because it's like the Chiefs just seemed off most of the year, like they just things just weren't quite buttoned up on offense, even though their defense is doing better. You were running the ball like so well. I mean, like that
Right.
first half, they were running it like crazy well.
It
It was
was.
like
They
every
were.
time it seemed like Cook was getting 7 or 8 yards on like
Yep.
every
Yep.
run, and then Josh Allen was able to do whatever he wanted.
Yep.
And it's just
Running
like
and throwing the ball at one
I
point.
mean, and that's a credit to the Chiefs too, though, for adjusting
Yeah. And
in
not
the
giving
second
up and
half.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah, but man, that's sorry, Bills, but Chiefs.
Sorry,
Wow,
Bills.
it's
Yeah.
that thing when
Pressure
people are
Chiefs
like,
too.
the Chiefs don't seem to have it, but also it's the playoffs, and I can't count against Patrick Mahomes. And it's
It's hard to still pick again. Although I picked the Bills still, but
yeah,
good God, like there were some things Mahomes did last night where I was just like, good God, that's not fair.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. How did we do on picks? Because I got to remember because I picked the Chiefs.
Well, I picked.
know.
I think I got 3 out of 4. The only one I missed was the Bills. Because
I think I just missed the Bucks because I picked.
You
the
did
Bucks.
because I remember you going like, "Wow, you picked the Bucks." Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Hey, they had a chance there.
they did. Baker threw a terrible interception.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go there since we're already talking about
Yeah,
it.
that was a great game too. Overall, nice back and forth for a while.
Yeah,
and that one felt over after they went up 31-17.
Yeah, I did.
And I was like, "Oh man, Niners, Bucks, here we go!" And then they scored with like 6 minutes left.
Yeah, then they had plenty of time. I know they really moved.
They scored quick, and boy, the Lions had no answer for Mike Evans all day.
They did not. Yeah, it seemed like they did early, but that after like the first quarter or so.
Yeah. Like some of those were. I was talking to another friend, and I was like, he's not even really running routes on some of these. It's just like, hey, run straight and beat this cornerback because he's not playing very well.
Like, yeah, and you can do that with Evans too. I mean, because he's already so tall too.
Right.
Minus early on. Normally his hands are really good. So.
Right. And there was one point too. Like they showed a shot. Baker threw at him, and it was like somewhat near the chest, and then I saw Mike Evans like point up, like, "Hey, just throw it above my head. Mm-hmm. I'm taller than these guys. Just throw it up there, and I'll grab it."
Yeah. Don't put it where their arms can get in the middle of it. It's like just throw it up here, and he's too short. It'll be fine. It was.
And he did.
Yeah, because that game. For a while too, it was kind of. A lot of it was playing out kind of how I thought. The Bulls was blitzing a good amount. At least making Goff uncomfortable. Though Goff really held up. He held his own.
He did
against it, and that's always kind of been the knock with Goff of like, oh, get him under pressure. And now it is always funny when people are like, oh, get him under pressure, get him under pressure. I'm like, yeah, that's what you want to do to every quarterback. That's always like every quarter. Like some quarterbacks, sure, yes, some quarterbacks are definitely better against the pressure than the others, but basically every quarterback is going to be worse than when they're not under pressure.
Right.
Because they're under pressure. It's just a different situation. It can be tough, and it's hard to not make a mistake, or at least just not make very good throws, even if interceptions don't happen and stuff.
Right, like you just throw it and the ball hits right in front of the guy's feet.
Yeah, but some people have reputations, and some of it rightfully so, for being completely atrocious against the pressure. And I thought with the tiny amount of pressure that Goff got last week from the Rams, he looked pretty shaky.
Yeah.
I was like, man, if Bulls is coming with all those blitzes, like you may get some really bad Goff throws or a fumble or something. And
or like a really bad sack on a 3rd and short.
Exactly,
or
something.
like
Yeah. And he really stepped up, I feel like, to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
overall he did. There were a couple of bad sacks on 3rd down that he did.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
it's 2 in my head that stand out in the first half.
Again, but you're not going to be perfect against the pressure.
Right, and that's I've always hated that too. We're like, well, he did take these 2 bad sacks. Every quarterback has taken a bad sack. Like even Lamar took a really bad sack on Saturday.
Yeah, and sometimes when they're blitzing that way, again, you're trying to make a decision in an instant.
Right.
And you also don't want to throw a pick, so you don't want to just throw it.
Throw it up
and if
there,
you're still in the pocket, it's not like you can just toss it wherever you want,
Right,
so
right.
It's a lot easier for us to just stand there and go like, oh, you shouldn't have let that guy get his
That
arms
sack,
around
right.
you there when that's the
Right.
only thing he's trying to do.
Yeah,
You
right,
know,
right.
so it's easy to
Yeah.
forget that. But yeah, I think that was pretty impressive. You know, that Baker throw at the end, that was
Oh my god.
not
I
not
I
great.
turned to the guy next to me at the bar because I was watching at Buffalo Wild Wings. I went, "Oh, there's that Baker interception,
Yeah, and
that back-breaking interception."
yeah, just and it's like you're still in it. You're only 8 points down.
Right,
They
right.
had the one timeout. They didn't have a lot of time, but they had the one timeout. I mean, they had a full 2 minutes when they
Yeah, they
started the
did.
drive. But
Yeah, and
uh,
it looked like they were going to move the ball right down the field at one
yeah,
point because they
because
got
they
those
had
back-to-back
been.
first
Yeah,
downs.
yeah, they
Yeah,
had been, and it's just like that middle of the field, just like the linebacker. I mean, he was there. He was just right there
he's right there. He
the
just
whole
threw it right
time.
to him.
Yeah. So it's like it wasn't even one of. I mean, now he made a good catch and stuff, but still, it's just like you shouldn't. How did you didn't see the guy? You just.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
probably it. He probably just didn't. He just didn't notice, I
Yeah, I
guess.
just don't
But
think he saw him. Yeah.
but yeah, it sucked just because you were hoping for that drive down, and then it comes down to the 2 point conversion to tie it, because
Yeah,
that's always so much fun. It's like, okay,
it
you got the
is.
touchdown, but now since you went
Right.
for 2 points before, which I was a
No,
little iffy.
so I was gonna say like that almost unnecessarily put more pressure on themselves because now it's on that last drive too. Now you got to drive down knowing you still need 2 points after you
Yeah,
score a
and
touchdown.
it's like
So I didn't understand. I understood it, but I didn't at the same time.
yeah, I was talking it out with my friend. I was like, come on, like I was like, I mean, you can just get it, and then you don't need a 2 point. But then I was thinking, like, what if you get the 2 point? Maybe you're thinking it puts some extra pressure on the Lions, because
Right,
now they have to worry about you know, if they don't kill the clock the rest of the way and then give the ball back. If you score a touchdown, you just need the extra point to win the
right,
game now.
right.
And if you don't get it, you still have the opportunity for the 2 point conversion. You know, to
Well, if they gotten that first 2 point and they scored to
yeah.
tie it at 31 all, then it's if you miss the extra point, cool. Well, we're still going to overtime anyways.
Yeah, so it's like I think that was probably their calculation was okay, well if we get it, it puts some weird pressure on the Lions now because now they know if we score, we're probably winning instead of
Right,
tying. Again, if we score
right,
again. Um and so maybe that makes them a little bit tighter. Plus, if we miss this, now we just know the next drive, if we can get the ball back without the Lions scoring, we're gonna have to have a 2 point conversion.
right,
But
right.
now we know, and now we're not left with that decision of like, do we just want to go for the win? We're the underdogs, or we're away. Should we just
Right.
do the 2 point now? So in some ways, I'm like, yeah, if you do the 2 point there, maybe there's less pressure. Like if you want to just go for the win, because there are a good amount of things like when you're the underdog, you're away. You don't a lot of times you don't really want to go to overtime because
Right.
the
I was going to say,
crowd's
in the
going to
way
be
the
so
Lions were moving
crazy.
the ball,
Yeah,
I think maybe they were like, we don't necessarily want to put the ball back in their
yeah.
offense's
Yeah,
hands.
so I kind of talked myself into it where I was like, "Okay, I think I get it. I think this is basically we're trying to win now, but we're doing it a touchdown early
Yeah.
because then we know we just need to go for 2 points again if we miss it." Versus
Yeah.
the other way, if you do that extra point there and then you decide to go for the 2 point on the last touchdown if you get it, if you miss it, you've lost anyway,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah. I guess that's true. Yeah.
But at least this way, it's like I think there's just I think I get it. I'm still like I was like I don't know, but but at the same time, I'm
Yeah.
like I guess in some ways it's like it. I think there's definitely some merit to it. Some things that I understood about it, and it's not like
Yeah. And
I don't know if it would have changed because it's like yeah maybe it did add some extra pressure there, but it's like but it only adds pressure. But it's like either way you're gonna have to score a touchdown.
yeah.
So
Right. Right.
I don't.
Yeah. And I almost understood it at one point because they had just marched right down the field and they
Yeah,
seemed to have the Lions on the ropes that
yeah,
drive. So I was like, maybe it was just like, yeah,
yeah,
fuck them. Let's keep them off guard and go for two real quick.
yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that was part of it too, or
Yeah.
maybe a combination of all that.
Yeah,
Honestly,
exactly. Yeah, there's so many things to take into
yeah.
account there. And
But hey,
Gibbs,
congrats, Lions!
yeah,
First NFC Championship game in 32
yeah.
years.
I was gonna say Gibbs looked good too,
He
man.
did,
Yeah,
and Amon-Ra St. Brown, that
yeah,
guy is a
yeah. Of
monster.
course,
Good
yeah,
lord,
yeah. But
always wide
yeah,
open.
he was. Yeah, but Gibbs was running. He was looking pretty fast.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that was a
good
good
season
game.
though for the Bucks, honestly, as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's another one. Like nobody really expected that. You ended up with a
No,
playoff win. You were, I
right,
mean, you kept
and we
this
kind of
game
went toe
tight.
to toe with the
Yeah,
Lions. Yeah,
exactly.
yep,
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be interesting for them just because like the Mike Evans, contract is out. Is
is out.
Godwin's
Yeah,
done too, or
I think he might have a year left, but
remember?
Baker only had the 1 year deal, so his is up.
Yeah, but I
And I think
mean,
there's a couple.
Foles said he wants to bring, that he wants Baker back, and
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I my guess would be that Baker would want to stay just because it's like, hey, you guys are the ones who gave me the shot,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
you kept believing in me.
right.
Um,
And maybe he even gives them a little bit of a discount, even though he's played really well, to try to keep Mike Evans.
yeah, I don't know because Mike Evans seemed like he wanted out, but it's like, do you, but now you're like, I don't know, maybe he's
I
feeling
don't know. Right,
okay.
right. We were like potentially 1 or 2 drives away from going to the freaking championship game.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that was a pretty good game for them. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because that's where you start getting worried. It's like, well, if you start losing all these pieces, it's like, what does it look like for Baker? But it doesn't mean that they can't
Right.
get other pieces. I mean, obviously they've been pretty good at getting wide receivers,
Yeah, yeah,
in
they
Tampa
have been.
Bay. So maybe maybe that happens.
Maybe that trend continues. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course the game that I think probably aged both of us by about 25 years apiece.
Oh yeah. My
Packers
God.
Niners.
Oh my God.
Woo! Oh
Uh,
man.
I woke up when I finally woke up yesterday afternoon. I was still stressed and was like, "Did that game actually? Is that game over? Like we won, right?"
Yeah.
There was no like weird. Actually, this touchdown by McCaffrey didn't count, and we lost. Like we won,
Yeah.
right? We won. Just want to make
Man.
sure.
I mean, that was
Now, from a pure
the
playoff football
Packers
standpoint, that was an amazing game.
Yeah, the Packers really figured things out, man.
They
Like
did.
it's like I realized that like I was thinking about it afterwards. It's like this is basically like, you know, minus maybe the Ravens, this was like the hottest, one of the hottest. Well, I guess the Bills are technically hot too, but like I'm like this is like one of the hottest teams, like,
Yeah.
and it's just like
The team was 3-6.
yeah. Yeah, and they just figured stuff out, towards the end of the year. A lot of their receivers figured stuff out, and the time. I mean, a lot of that, of course, people have talked about it a bunch, so we don't have to get into it. But I mean, a lot of that makes sense just because it's like really young receivers, first time starting quarterback, just figuring out the logistics,
Right.
And, like,
Right. You got your
understanding
growing
each other
pains and all that.
Yeah, but credit to that. I mean, they figured it all out in the year,
They did, and there was a big adjustment, especially down the stretch.
Yeah.
They started giving Aaron Jones the freaking ball.
Yeah.
And that just took so much pressure on Love.
Well,
and, like,
I mean, because he had a
Peter
hamstring
Jones.
most of the year, though, or a calf issue most of the year.
Yeah,
and
but even when he was healthy at the beginning of the year, or when he came back and he was healthy, they still were giving him the ball.
Yeah.
And that was like, it felt like it was putting so much pressure on Jordan Love to be this great quarterback. And then, like, I noticed that Love was playing way more loose and confident because he knew that, like, hey, we're still going to give Aaron Jones the ball like 25 to 30 times a game. So you don't have to do everything.
Yeah, and he was a monster again too.
In the first half, those last 4 drives, he was not.
Well,
great.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, I was talking about Aaron Jones.
Oh yeah, he was a monster on Saturday.
It was like the first 100-yard rusher the Niners have led up in like 50 games or something.
I know.
Just a monster game. Now, like, and this is like the big thing, and it's going to be interesting. I haven't listened to any of the stuff I normally listen to, podcasters.
No, neither have I. Not yet.
Sports shows and things yet, because it's going to be interesting because this is the kind of win that a lot of people earlier in the year were saying, this is what we want to see. We want to see
Right.
the Niners do this. And a lot of that was fair. I mean, because it's just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Because
Kyle Shanahan being 0-30 and trailing by 5 points
yeah.
or more in the fourth quarter. I mean, like, that's insane. I mean, now
Yeah.
it's like most coaches who are trailing in the fourth quarter have a losing record.
Right.
So that's not abnormal because like, yeah, you're trailing in the fourth quarter. You know,
Right.
it's like,
Right.
this is your last.
And also like, how many of those games were during his early tenure with the Niners when they were still god awful.
Yeah. So you do got to,
So
but it's like,
that
but to
number
not
is
have
still a little skewed.
any wins, you
But
know.
yeah.
And because it's not like 5 points isn't a lot, you know. That's not a lot of points. Like,
Right.
it's just one touchdown and you're in the lead, you know. So
Right.
I mean, like, and I do think he suffers from tight play calling when it gets in there. Like, something happens to him, and it's just like
He gets super conservative at some point, and you're just like, why are you?
It's like he gets
Why are you
conservative,
getting
but
away
not.
from?
You
Well,
know,
yeah.
because it's like he forgets about the run game. I mean, even in this game, I think it could have been the same. I mean, McCaffrey was sometimes just running through people. I mean, like, he just
barreling through people.
because that's how he is. He just doesn't care. You know, he's just like, I don't
No.
care about my body. This is an important game. Like,
Yeah. Especially that last touchdown run, like that Packers guy looked like he was going to tackle me. I was like, no. Get out of my way.
You know, well, I mean, both of his touchdown runs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that
just
one up the middle, too, that 39-yarder. I was like,
yeah.
how did he get through that?
Yeah, he just like ran through a tackle, you know, it just like he was just barreling through. So, but what's interesting, and I'm certain that Nick Wright will not have this position, but he had, but you know, like when they were talking about that record on First Things First, which is a good show. I really enjoy the guys on that show. But when they were having this discussion on First Things First, it was like about like being 0-30 and stuff. And Nick Wright's like, well, yeah, he's never had the quarterback. And it's like, I know he's not going to go, well, Purdy's obviously the quarterback. But here's the thing. I mean, it's like, it is actually a pretty good point because it's like Purdy was not good for this game, right?
No.
You know, just off
No.
on a lot of ways. I mean, now he made some really good throws. I mean, the touchdown to Kittle was a great throw.
That was a
running out
throw.
of the pocket, you know, like, you know, and then he had a couple to Jennings that were like, you know, pretty sweet and stuff. But
Yeah.
like, and of course,
Real
the last
quick
drive
on
he was
that.
6 of 7. The one miss was just a pure drop by Kittle.
Oh my
and then
God,
he
that
also
was
ran
so-
for a first down on that same drive.
Almost.
I
It was like 9 yards. That was the play right before the McCaffrey touchdown.
Yeah.
Was that scramble?
Yeah, and so like
Which was great,
I
'cause
mean,
that
like,
was like-
I mean, yeah, minus the McCaffrey punching. I mean, that was all Purdy on that drive.
It was on that drive,
Um,
yeah. And you know, I thought about that too. Was like that was like you said, the Niners. Everybody wanted to see them win a game like that, and I agree. Like that was a fair criticism. And then Purdy. I was trying to say Brock Purdy. But Purdy led that game-winning drive, and like he wasn't great all game, but man, like there were games like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady had where they weren't great, but when they needed it, all of a sudden those guys locked in and then just got it done.
Yeah,
and people
and
were
it's like,
criticizing Purdy for not doing that, and then he finally did.
yeah, so I'm like, and this is the thing about Nick Wright being like, oh, you know, maybe Kyle's been so bad with that because he just never really had the quarterback, and like I said, I don't think he's going to be like, well, Purdy's the quarterback. The way Nick Wright
he's
felt,
too entrenched in
felt
his
about
views
him.
now.
You know, but maybe he actually is the difference because it's not like the play calling was that much different than what Shanahan's done before, but Purdy actually made it happen this time.
Right.
You know, he's the one who made it happen. And to have that bad of a game, I mean, and this is the thing just for the 49ers in general, this was like a great, I mean, even though it was so stressful, and obviously you would have liked to see everything be more solid and you feel more, you know, like just as a team.
You feel better and more confident
but it's
moving
like,
forward.
But, you know, those, like I said earlier with like the Texans, it's like, you know, when you're the underdog, especially in the playoffs, you just, especially when you're that big of an underdog, like you just need so many things to usually break your way. The Packers got most of those.
Most of that. The
You know?
only thing that didn't go their way was Savage dropping that interception that Purdy threw right to him.
Yeah.
And that would have, I think they lose that game because he had nothing but daylight ahead of him.
Yeah.
If he catches that ball, that's a touchdown.
Well, and that's always the stuff you wonder because it's like that was early enough in the game. It's like, maybe things just adjust a little bit and the game looks differently.
That's true. Yeah, maybe.
But it is. Yeah. I mean, he just flat out dropped that.
Yeah.
He just dropped it, and I mean, and it was the biggest difference in the game because pretty much everything was even in the game, their yards, first downs, like,
right. Neither team was great at stopping the run.
Yeah, exactly. And it came down to one team had 2 turnovers and one had 0, even though 49ers had turnover worthy plays. It's like, but they didn't get it. That's the difference.
Right.
Sometimes that's football. That's the difference in the game is who was able to, take advantage of your mistakes, and
yeah, exactly.
Greenlaw, what a comeback for him from his injuries and stuff.
I know, what's crazy is that I was like, wow, that guy who is questionable just saved the game twice.
Yeah, 2 big interceptions. I mean, so here's the thing though that's really funny is that and I gotta pull it up. Is that the small amount of stuff I did listen to, because I did listen to at least Nora Princiati and Steven Ruiz. I did because they did one right after on the Saturday, so they did just the Saturday
they usually
games.
do. Yeah.
It's so interesting how this gets talked about because is like, oh, but Love looked so good in the game, and it's like, and then it's like and it's like you look at it and it's like he was 21 of 34, 194 yards, 2 TDs, 2 picks. And it's just like, you want to talk about how Purdy wasn't very accurate on the day, but it's like he was only throwing 61% of passes.
Right.
I mean, it's not like he was like.
Yeah, and like I saw that stuff yesterday morning too. When I woke up, I was just like, Jordan Love was fantastic and did everything he needed to do. And then I saw one guy was like, who said that like Love did everything, Purdy didn't really do anything except that last drive. And I was like, did you watch that game? Like Love was really good at first, and then starting in the back half of the third quarter through the fourth, he was not very
and the reason why I thought about it was because that first Greenlaw interception, that was a bad throw. I mean, like,
it was just a bad throw.
Yeah, it was a bad throw to an open guy, middle of the field, and it's just like he was high, it was behind, and then it tipped up in the air because he was trying to get it,
Right.
And then Greenlaw was able to come down with it. And of course, the last interception was but it's like people are like, oh, don't let that last interception spoil Love's performance. He was so great in this game. Now, of course, the Niners have a great defense. So, I mean, like, this isn't an indictment of this. The idea of me saying this is not an indictment of Love, and not saying that he didn't do pretty well under the circumstances, but it's not like he was lighting things up. I mean, he had less than 200 yards passing. And like I said, he had 61% completion percentage, so, it's like people were like, oh, Purdy can't play in the rain. This is twice now. And like, his completion percentage was terrible. And it's like, okay, but it's not like Love's was a lot better either here, No. So it's like, now, of course, now Love's, and it's because, and I get it, it's like you get sort of enthralled because Love can make some of those throws that just look really pretty, and you're just like, that's a pretty throw. Like, it just looks really nice, and it looks, and so you people get those in their heads and they think, oh, this guy's doing so much better. And it's like, well, no, it's just like, I don't know. It's just like some people just throw like that. I don't know what to tell you,
You should watch that last interception. It is like, it's like a shot for shot remake of Brett Favre's last interception with the Vikings in that championship game.
Oh yeah.
It was unreal. I was like, is this just like a Packers quarterback thing? They showed another replay on the first one.
Yeah.
of the same thing of Favre against Dallas in the playoffs like 20 years ago or 25 years ago. Same thing. He tries to force it off his back foot. It gets tipped right into the end zone of like 4 Dallas Cowboys. And I was like, this has to be like some sort of like Packers philosophy thing at this point. Because that's like, this is too eerily similar.
And that's the thing. I mean, they did tell him, I mean, like, just go out there and sling it. That's one thing, you know, LaFleur said he's really trying to get Love to be doing more. Is just being confident, which is good to be confident, you know, but like just go out and sling it and stuff. And it's like, but there's a situational awareness, right? Because you didn't need to make that throw. You did not have to have that play yet. You know, you were not that desperate. You know, I mean, like you didn't have a lot of time, but you just had to get in field goal range to hopefully.
Now, you had 2 timeouts.
Now with Carlson, like who knows, like you know, if he would have made it, but like
dude missed a 41-yarder, which is like not a chip shot in the rain, but like if you're gonna be a kicker in the playoffs,
it
you
felt
need to be
good for Moody
kick.
to get that 50-yarder.
Holy crap!
That was definitely big.
So. I was nervous as hell,
especially with the block, you know, earlier at the end of that. And that was a rough stretch, man. That end of the first half. He's done this a couple of times, Shanahan. You're just like, what are you? It's like I know you're trying not to give them time, but you understand we still need some time, though, right? We have to. It's not like we're super close here, you know. And it's just like
like we're still on like their 35-yard line. Not exactly an easy field goal for our guy who's already had one.
And we had enough time. There was a chance to try and get a touchdown. Like I just don't understand like what was going on there. And you know, it's just like there's some situational stuff I wish Shanahan would take like an extra class for or something. Like because he's such a good coach in so many ways. You know, because obviously the guys play really hard. Obviously, it's scheme. Scheme is great. I mean, there's never any argument about like how everything's schemed. And again, the guys play really hard, so you know, like he's coaching people up. They want to play hard. You know, so like all that stuff.
They obviously want to win for him.
His number one weakness is that those little situational things when it's like we could have. There's no reason why we shouldn't have gotten points. One, just points in general, but two, this should have been a possibility for getting a touchdown somewhere.
A touchdown,
You know, we could have worked for a touchdown in some. I mean, even if you ran it instead of just letting the clock run down so much, you know.
That's what I was going to say. Is like you talked about him getting away from the run game, and he didn't really run at all in that drive. Like, dude, you have plenty of time to run the ball, and we're running the ball down their throats. McCaffrey.
It's like, and if you're trying to be, and it's like if you're trying to be safer, just do it that way instead of just letting the time run out, and then. You know, but maybe because of the way McCaffrey's running, you get a big run, and now you can't go for the touchdown. You know, so
and like you said, even if you leave a little bit of time on the clock, even if you leave like 30 or 40 seconds on the clock, like not exactly a lot of time because I think the Packers were out of timeouts at that point, anyways, in the first half. So you're like,
I don't remember, but yeah,
I don't remember either. But even if they had 1 or 2 left, like you're gonna have to force them to go like 55, 60 yards in. 40 seconds with a timeout.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
just get them in the middle of the field and you're good to go.
Yeah. But I mean, and this is the thing, because I think, obviously the Packers were in a can't lose scenario and that, it's gravy and stuff. But if you are a Packers fan, it's like you almost rather that they would just been steamrolled. Because you're like, we had no business really being here in a lot of ways, right? Like, we did not expect to be here. But now that we're here and we're this close,
right?
And they're making these mistakes,
and we outplayed the number 1 seed the entire game.
Exactly. It makes that loss so much more disappointing because you're like, I was not, because I'm sure plenty of Packers fans were not necessarily expecting to win, but when it's like, but we can, we're right there,
Right. One of the guys I follow on YouTube is a big Packers fan, and when he was. Like leading up to the game, he was like, obviously I want to win. I'm going to pick the Packers to win, but I really don't think it's going to be that close.
Yeah.
And then the game starts, and obviously we go through all that. We see what happens. And at the end of it, I watched his reaction afterward, and he was like, he just said what you just said. Like, we were playing with house money. I didn't think we were going to win, and then we were beating them.
Yeah.
The entire game.
Yeah.
So I went from like not expecting anything to going, holy crap, we could be 1 game away from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
And then so he goes, it was heartbreaking enough to lose that game, but I am so sick of losing to the freaking 49ers.
Right, it had to be the 49ers, you know.
49ers.
It's probably like similar with like Bills and Chiefs,
The Bills,
you know, where
yeah.
you're just like, why? But why? Like, why can't this happen? You know, and yeah, and like I said, I mean I think for the Niners, this is such to have all of that happen every time this has happened, sort of in the Kyle Shanahan era, we've lost. And I do think quarterback ended up being kind of the difference. And I think
I agree. I mean, especially on that scramble, and like I mentioned this to a couple other people, on that scramble that set up the touchdown, the way that pocket collapsed, if that's Jimmy G, that is a freaking sack.
Yeah. And that entire drive, what I'm thinking is he's gonna throw a pick, isn't he? He's gonna throw the pick. That's what's gonna happen.
Right.
And you don't feel that way with Purdy. With Purdy, you're like, okay, is he gonna make the play? You know, it's like, is he gonna make the play? You know, it's like, you know, it's a different level that you're looking at. And you know, and it's like having a bad game, all of that stuff, and the Niners offense struggling really in a lot of ways. And I was gonna be so mad if we lost that game, if we didn't get another scorer, because then we would have been at 17, and every single one of the losses would have been at 17 points.
Oh my god! Yeah.
I was like, is there some curse at 17 for the Niners?
Yeah, that would have been like that would have been like the Broncos who kept getting cursed. They couldn't score more than 16 points in a game.
Yeah,
to save their lives for a while.
Yeah, and
like
so,
what was it with 16 points?
Yeah, and so it just sort of felt like they sort of broke through something, being able to do that. Now we'll see. I mean, who knows? I mean, but it just like, as you know, since we've watched 49ers a lot and stuff, and having all of these like, right, you know, when we're ahead, everything's great, it's kosher, they know how to hold on to a lead, everything's good to go.
Right. You're never really that worried.
But from behind in the fourth quarter, mostly just
even when
quarter.
They kicked the field goal, I was like, oh my god, fourth quarter again. Yep. Here we go.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
Yeah, and it was and so it was definitely just like a thing of like, oh man, like but it may be really something that the team needed, because now hopefully they get a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, and it was a nice humbling thing. Like, again, a 7 seed came in that had no business being in the playoffs at one point, the way they were playing midway through the season. Now they're taking you down all the way to the wire, where like you could very possibly lose this game. And you, let's be real, should have lost that game. Like, I'm not even going to admit they should have lost that game. So hopefully that's humbling of like, we are beatable. We got a lot of.
Well, I'm not even worried about the humbling, because I think they were humble enough from before. I think it's more just like, now they go, oh, if we're down in the fourth, we can do it. Like,
we can do it now,
right?
Oh, that's
like,
true.
We can, like, you know, we just did it. You know, it's not what it is before, where it's just like, oh, you know, we're down in the fourth, you know, you know, and so I look at, because I think the Ravens game was pretty humbling, and I think the Packers were just playing really good ball. I mean, I just don't I don't think this was, you know, I think 49ers were obviously not sharp either, but I think there was just, the Packers were coming in. I mean, you do have that 3 weeks off, right? And then it's just like the Packers are just playing, I mean, really well. I mean, they knocked out the 2 seed, and then they come in and give them 1 seed to run for their money. So, like,
you didn't even just knock out the 2 seed; you beat the living piss out of them.
So I just think I think that it was just like they were coming in really hot, and so I don't think it was like the Niners were taking them lightly. I think it was just
I don't think so either. No, I don't think so.
But yeah, so well, let's just go ahead and talk about Lions Niners then.
Should be a really good game. I'm a little bit scared of it, especially with the way the run defense looked against the Packers, and the Lions having Jahmyr Gibbs
and Montgomery. I mean, their 1-2 punch is really good.
Yeah, him and David Montgomery. Yeah, that's tough.
And obviously their offensive line is great, because that's what they've worked on. So
yeah, that's true. And our pass rush wasn't exactly great against the Packers. So we'll see. Maybe Steve Wilkes dials up some blitzes, just like Tampa Bay did.
Yeah,
like maybe he sees that and goes, you know what? Maybe we need to not rush 4. Maybe we do need to dial up some stuff. I think he will.
Yeah. I mean, because the one thing is like, because we do have, because I mean, Ward has had a great season, so if he can at least limit Brown,
Right.
right? You know, so like if you can feel pretty confident about that matchup there.
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the field were great because of Greenlaw and Warner.
Yeah. Right. But
So
even if Sam Laporte is healthy, like I'm not overly worried about that.
yeah, I mean, not him on the outside, maybe, but it's like, but at least you know they should usually be pretty good at containing the stuff in the middle like they normally are.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what you're hoping is that one, yeah, maybe that means they feel confident dialing up some blitzes, going, okay, we
Right.
know Ward's gonna at least hold up with Brown, and
Right.
we know that Warner, you know, or you know, can kind of like run with Laporta if need be,
Right.
and stuff.
And then if Lenoir plays as well as he did against the Packers, you're feeling pretty good because he was
Yeah.
awesome in that game.
Yeah, yeah. He really was. Yeah, he was fired up.
He was.
um,
Also, get Aubrey Thomas off that fucking field. He was awful.
yeah, that big pass interference when it was the 3rd and 15. I'm like, what? You were there the whole time, man.
You were
just
there.
there. Like all you had to do was just turn around in front of the guy. You
Yep,
know,
and
you
jump
were
for the ball. Like that's it.
Yeah, you would have been fine, or fine just doing the thing where you just hold your hands out. You know, if you're not exactly sure where, but it's like, but you were looking at the ball, so just like looking for the ball at least, like get your hands that way. Don't get your hands
Yeah.
on him, because
Right.
you can be
And, like, 'cause
touching
they
the
won't
guy
call
more
pass
if
inter-
you're going for the ball. If it at least
Yeah, I
looks
was
like
gonna
you're going for the
say
ball.
they won't call pass interference if you're clearly like looking for the ball,
Yeah.
but you still don't know where it
Yeah,
is.
like it just that made no sense. But yeah, so he was really playing. Yeah.
That
but-
was also frustrating. Was like those pass interference calls was they were all legit.
Yeah.
Every
Oh,
time
yeah.
I watched the replay, I was like, "That's legit."
Yeah,
that's
you're just what
not
pass
playing
interference
very well.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it'll be and then I mean I feel pretty good against the defense.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, their secondary has issues, like a lot of them. I mean, we saw that yesterday.
Obviously the Lions worked really hard to be good against the run, so that'll be interesting to see. But
Yeah,
it's not like we can't throw it. If you know, it's not like the 49ers can't throw it. So
right.
if they don't,
And also,
if they
there's a
want to.
big difference though between some of the running backs they face and Christian McCaffrey. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit.
Yeah,
little
and then running behind Trent Williams, yeah, it's a different,
Right, yeah.
different.
And this will be a nice test. Is that makes me feel a little bit better? Is obviously that home field advantage, because man, does it seem to matter these playoffs having home field advantage?
Yeah,
I think the Bills are the only.
Bills.
Well, not Dallas. So Dallas and the Bills, I think, are the only two teams to lose at home.
Yeah,
so far.
Yeah, and Dallas just got trounced, so it's like the fans never had a chance to get in it.
Right, yeah.
Dallas, so
yeah, that game was 20-0 before you could blink an eye.
Yeah. So that was different, and then just I don't know, just the Chiefs are just the kryptonite for the Bills. So
yeah, maybe. And that 49ers crowd was loud on Saturday.
Yeah, and so that's yeah, and there obviously is some bad stats for the Lions for traveling. It's outdoors. Yeah. That's not always great for Goff. Like,
I think it's supposed to be fairly nice though next weekend. I think it's supposed
to be, but I mean, still, when it's a week away, you never know.
That's true, especially on the Bay. Like, you never know.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's it's going to be interesting. I wonder what the line is for that.
I haven't actually looked. I try to not look at the lines until I listen to Simmons and Sal.
Yeah. But
try to guess with them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Niners are going to be favored, but
yeah, I think it'll be like. I think it'll be 4.5 to 5 because I think on a neutral
4.5
field
is exactly what I thought.
Yeah, because I think on a neutral field they're about a touchdown better than the Lions. Yeah, that's just how I personally feel. So obviously I'm picking the 49ers, but I would not. I think it would be a really good back and forth game, and I would not be at all shocked if they somehow beat them. If the Lions won,
yeah. If the Lions beat them, that's Goff plays really well again. Doesn't make any of the backbreaking mistakes.
Right,
and they're able to kind of run the ball and kind of control things. I think so because their defense still isn't great. So it's like that's you got to keep the Niners offense off the field.
Yeah, you do.
But I also wouldn't doubt if the 49ers guys are flying around and Goff just doesn't see a couple of things, or he gets some
Oh
pressure on
yeah,
him and then just
right,
like,
right. And after their performance last week, the obviously a trip to the Super Bowl's on the line too, but that Niners team is going to be extra fired up to play, I think, lights out ball.
yeah, yeah,
Remind people like, hey, yeah, we almost lost to the Packers,
yeah,
but we're really fucking good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the Lions can't do the exact same things because the biggest thing is like what the Packers really had going for them is like a bunch of their wide receivers started to play well, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Now
so
there
it was
were
hard.
a
It's not
couple.
like Ward could take out somebody, but it's like it's hard when like I mean like they were at one. I mean like in the first half they had like completions to like 9 different receivers,
Yeah, it
you
was
know.
insane.
So
Yeah.
so it's like and the Lions don't have quite that ability. They
Right.
don't have the same
Right.
level. I mean, because obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown is an amazing receiver, and obviously Sam Laporte is a really good tight end. And it's not like they don't have some people to throw it to, but they're not the same level as what the Packers
Right. Like
guys have
Craig
turned
Reynolds.
into.
Yeah, Craig Reynolds is a solid number
Yeah,
2 behind St. Brown.
yeah,
That guy can make some plays.
yeah.
But yeah,
But it's not the
yeah.
same.
But,
It's just not the same level of that you're worried about that. But the running game
you,
is just as scary. So that's
uh,
the side.
it was funny. I want to go back to one last thing about like almost everything breaking the Packers' way.
Yeah.
There were at least 3 third down conversions where the Niners defenders slipped and
Oh,
their
I
receivers
know.
were just wide open. I was
Yeah.
like, good God, like they are getting every single freaking break they can
Yeah,
get.
exactly. And that's why, again, that's why I think it was such a big win because it's just like, okay, all these things go wrong and we can still win.
And we
We
still won.
figured
Yeah.
it out. You know,
All right.
we figured it out. And then
Uh,
Chiefs
Ravens,
Ravens.
Chiefs,
It's
man.
do you know it's the one seed and the 3 seed in both conferences.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yep.
I don't know what to make of this game. I want to say Baltimore, but like
Yeah, you
because they
want
played so
to.
well, they kicked the crap out of the Texans. But it's just like we just saw what Mahomes did
I
though in
know.
Buffalo.
Like you want to, but you're like, but there's Mahomes and it's
And
just like I mean, it's just not fair. It's just not a fair
right.
thing.
And I remember even saying that last week. I was like, I want to say the Bills are going to win this game easily, but again, like the Chiefs seem like they're kryptonite, and it's Mahomes.
Yeah.
It drives you up the wall.
Yeah, and it
And you
seems
just
like
like,
they're
gotta be
figuring
worried about
stuff
this team.
out. I mean, and if they
I
can
know.
I mean
It's wild. It's
I mean,
wild.
the way Rice has come on, obviously Kelsey looked a lot better in the game too. And then Pacheco's been pretty great the whole year when he's been
Yeah,
healthy.
that
So
dude runs like a truck. Good
yeah,
lord.
exactly. And it's tough, but it's at the same time, it's like, but the Ravens are like the most complete team.
Yeah,
So
right,
it's
right.
also like, I mean, what's gonna happen there? I mean, they're still not crazy strong at wide receiver. I mean, they're better than they've been in a long time.
Yeah, and Kelsey finally showed up again yesterday. That was huge. He was all
yeah.
sorts of wide open all game.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely it feels like the Chiefs defense can definitely cover their wide receivers.
Mhm.
So that's going to be interesting to see. And now, of course, you've always got the Lamar running options.
I was gonna say you
and
still gotta worry about Lamar running the ball and Gus Edwards.
I mean, and
also
them
looked
running it in
good.
general, which is scary because the Bills were running really well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and the Ravens are harder to adjust to because they can run in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, right.
So like that's if you're a Chiefs fan, that's probably the big concern of like, okay, I feel like we can
And
probably cover their guys, but can we stop the run at all on them? Like, is
right.
that gonna?
And Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson's running styles are so much different. Like Allen
Oh,
just tries to bulldoze everybody, whereas Lamar, like we saw on Saturday, essentially becomes like a full blown skilled running back that can just
yeah,
juke the crap out of you,
yeah,
and all of a sudden he's gone.
yeah. And
So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to the different styles of running quarterbacks.
yeah. So it'll be that's probably that's one of the big matchups I'm interested in seeing. Yeah, is
Yeah.
how the Ravens running game. You know, if the Chiefs are able to adjust to it and how they're able to attack it, because that's going to be a big struggle if they can't limit. You can't stop it. It's like one of those things of
Right,
like
right.
you're just trying to limit. You're just
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
make it
yeah.
so that they throw the ball hopefully a few more times maybe.
Right, right.
Because like I said, I feel like they're probably going to feel fairly confident coverage wise
Hmm.
there. And then uh I mean the Ravens defense has looked good, but it's just like
That's my thing. Like
it,
the Texans only put up 10 points, but 7 of that was special teams, so their offense only put up 3 points all
yeah,
day.
and
They did not look good.
it's just like one of those things you're looking at. It's like you should be able to
Right.
hinder this team, and especially with the way the Chiefs, like their year was not very
Has been
offensive
right.
heavy, but it's like, but you just never know. It's just like
You never know.
they've looked.
I feel the exact same way like I did against picking the Bills last week against the Chiefs. Like they really should win this game. But
Yeah, and they've just looked.
I'm
They've
still gonna pick the Ravens.
Yeah, and they've just looked
But
better these 2 weeks.
right,
Even
right.
the first game, I mean, it was so cold, and it's just like the numbers in games that are that cold are not good for
No,
quarterbacks
and
and things like
I
that.
try to not take those games too seriously
But
because
like,
no
but that's
matter
what I
who
mean.
you
Like, it was already such a cold game, and you still looked pretty good.
are. Oh, that's true.
It's
Yeah.
like and then of
And
course against
yesterday
the
was
Bills.
yeah, last night was not very warm either. I think their wind chill was close to 0 last
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
Um,
I just don't. So that it's hard because it's like, yeah, everything says Ravens, and I
everything.
100% like, yes, that makes the most sense to me. But there's just
Yeah.
this little section where you're just like, but I just don't know. And I guess that's how you should feel. It's the championship games, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
they should feel
Right.
like, oh, yes, but maybe, like even if
Right,
you're
right.
leaning one way or the other, because same thing with 49ers lines. I'm like, yeah, I feel like 49ers, but it's like, but that's not like that's like like 55-45,
Right,
it's
right,
like, yeah,
right.
I'm leaning one way, but I'm not like, again, like you
Like,
said,
this is
you're
not
not
gonna be a
shocked,
blowout.
and you shouldn't be. You
Right,
should
right.
never be shocked. I feel like in the championship game if one team wins, unless if like they
Yeah.
won in a crazy way, like they were down by 40 points and they came back and won. But like as far as like the games haven't played yet, like it should not be. That's a bad thing if you're like, oh, this is an easy game.
Right, right.
That means
Yeah.
that somebody made it to the championship game that probably had no business making it to the championship
Yeah.
game.
It reminds me of that. It reminds me of that 49ers Chargers Super Bowl because I watched a documentary on that one, and that was one of those like the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. The Chargers have no business being in that
Yeah,
game.
yeah, and that stinks when that happens because it's like,
Right,
that's not
right.
what you want. And so this does feel like, I mean, the Chiefs were kind of shaky throughout the year, but a lot of the AFC was shaky. I mean, even though the Bills were the number 2 seed, they were super shaky.
Yeah, I did not buy into that. Oh, the Bills are so hot coming into the playoffs because those 5 wins. Yeah, cool,
Yeah,
good for you.
yeah.
But they did not look very
Yeah,
good
and
going in,
then even
even
their
on
win
those
against
5
the
games.
Steelers, it's like, yeah, you beat Mason Rudolph. I mean,
Right.
like,
And it was still somewhat competitive the
yeah,
entire game.
yeah. I mean, now of course they did keep it tight. I mean, obviously they had a chance to win against the Chiefs, so I'm not saying that they didn't play well, but it's just like, but you gotta
Right.
you gotta be careful with that. But it does kind of feel like, because I never bought into the Cowboys as much either because a lot of their wins were crap.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
looked, their writing was kind of on the wall there. So this does kind of feel like probably the best 4 teams.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
feel like overall best teams.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that we're about right.
Yeah, so and that's great. That's always great when you get
Yeah,
that because you're like,
because
you're
the
like,
Eagles obviously weren't going anywhere. They
no,
were a
yeah,
disaster after
yeah,
the loss of the
yeah. Now
49ers.
maybe people make some arguments for the Packers for how they did down the stretch, for
Right, right,
their last bit, which is certainly an argument, but it's just like, but it makes sense that they weren't quite there.
right,
Um,
right. The
uh,
moment just kind of became a little too big there in the end.
yeah, though they did great, but yeah,
They did.
it
Yeah, they
was,
did.
yeah.
Yep.
But
But
yeah,
Love did
this
what
does.
Love tried to play hero ball right there at the
Yeah,
end.
but this is like, yeah, this does seem like the best 4 teams, so that's pretty
It does.
exciting, I
Yep.
think.
Yep.
So it should be a good
And I
season.
feel like it's the 4 best teams, and like you just mentioned, like it feels like all these teams deserve to be there. So all these games are going to be, both games are going to be good.
Yeah.
They're going to be competitive. I'd be shocked if either game went to a blowout, became a blowout.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I'd be
Yeah.
shocked. Obviously they're not out of the realm of possibility. So
Right,
I think
right.
the cases I think if you're thinking blowout are probably, well, I think you could say Lions Niners. It's like if it's probably just because there's so many mistakes, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's
If
just like
Goff has one of those Goff 3 interception days.
yeah, it's just like one of the quarterbacks just plays terrible and like just
Mhm.
things get out of the way and like, you know, I mean, of course that's usually the case in any blowout, but
Right.
but it's not like blowout. You're not expecting blowout in the sense of like you're just stopping them and you're
Right.
just scoring every time.
And you're
It's
just
like you're
scoring every
only
time.
expecting blowout if it's mistakes and
Right.
and you're able to capitalize on the mistakes
Yeah.
there. The likelihood if there's a blowout, it feels more likely that the Ravens blow out the Chiefs than the Chiefs will blow
Mhm.
out the Ravens.
Yes. I don't see a scenario where the Chiefs blow out the Ravens.
Yeah, yeah.
I just
Again,
don't.
and minus, there's always that just game from hell scenario. But yeah, but
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
talking about just like, I just don't.
Gut instinct, everything on paper, there's no way the Chiefs blow this team.
But I mean, yeah, but for the Ravens, the argument is their defense is actually really good. Sure, the Chiefs have made improvements, but like they just were not able to fight against this defense. And then
Right.
they were able to run the ball so well against the Chiefs that like they just scored on all of their possessions. And the Chiefs just couldn't get going. So like
Right,
that's
Yeah, I
kind
can
of how
see
you
that
look at
happening.
it. But yeah,
Yeah.
Lions Niners would be a bigger shock if there was a blowout because
Mhm.
even though both teams can score, but it's like, but that's the thing, both teams can really score. So it
Yeah.
feels like even in a
And
blowout
both teams
scenario,
have issues in the secondary.
exactly. So it just seems like it seems like even if one team starts getting a bigger lead, there's always a chance that other team could cut back into it in some way.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
But
We'll see.
yeah, it's gonna be pretty exciting.
So
Yeah,
we're both picking the same two teams, I believe, 49ers and Ravens.
well, definitely 49ers.
Man, you're struggling.
It's a struggle. I don't know what the line is, but yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with Ravens. But I bet whatever the line is, Chiefs will end up covering. But I think it's gonna be.
Yeah,
I think
I don't think
I think it's gonna
more
be
than-
like a 1 or 2 point game.
Yeah, I
Ravens,
think the
Chiefs.
line will be like 2.5 to 3.
Yeah, because I think because I think the Chiefs are probably gonna want to run it too. So
Yeah.
now
They will. Yeah.
the Lions Niners, I would not be surprised if one of those teams wins by like a touchdown, just because of the way that they throw the ball and the way they score points.
Right,
and stuff,
right.
You know,
Like it's tied. That game may come down to whoever has the ball last and they punch it in for a touchdown.
yeah, exactly.
And then there's just no time left on the clock.
Exactly. So yeah, so that one's a little more interesting, but in that regard. But yeah, so it's so hard with the Chiefs because it's just like the same thing just keeps happening. You're like, oh yeah, this should be the year you can knock out the Chiefs, and yet here they are.
Here they are
in the championship game, and you're just like, I mean, it's like, yeah, if you're the other teams in the AFC, you got to be like, what the hell, man? Like, this was your bad year. Or we thought this was the bad year. Like, I don't understand. You know, and Burrow's out, so we don't have to worry about that. You know, it's just like,
right.
If the Ravens lose, I mean, really, it's just like, if you're in the AFC, I mean, you got to think about seeing if you're allowed to switch conferences because you're just like, this was the year where they looked the most vulnerable. And
they were most of the year. They weren't very good.
And it's like, and then still, like,
they somehow still made it to the fucking Super Bowl.
And this time they had to go on the road, it's like, because we thought
had to go on the road for two teams. The two teams that were better than them in the regular season.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, obviously that's but if they beat the Ravens, I mean, that would just be, I mean, that's when you start putting your hands up and you're just like, I don't know.
I don't know
what
what
I'm supposed to do anymore. It's just like, yeah. And then of course for the Niners, it's just like, this is their third trip to the in a row for the conference finals, and it's just like, you feel like
this is the best I have felt because this is the most healthy they've been.
Yeah.
They
Debo's
didn't have to go on the
50-50
road.
right now, they're saying.
Yeah, but overall, this is the most healthy they've been.
Yeah.
They're at home finally
Yeah.
for the championship game. And you have a quarterback who feels like he can finally get you over that hump.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is the best iteration
Yeah.
of these 49ers
Yeah.
teams.
So, like, and with this game, too, I think one of the reasons why it hurt Debo to be out is, Jair Alexander for the Packers obviously really good. He was able to kind of because Purdy and Ayuk were off like the whole game. So
Yeah.
I think, but that's going to be less of a problem against the Lions. So even if Debo's not as much of a go, I think Ayuk and Kittle are both going to be able to really get
Step
open.
it up.
So, and Jennings has always been pretty solid.
I was going to say Jennings. I don't think we win that game either.
I think it's different than what it would have been than it was against the Packers to lose Debo, because Debo was such a physical presence, and it looked like he was definitely getting some space in that game.
He was,
and able to run through guys. Same thing as with McCaffrey. Kittle runs through people too. I mean, he did also. Now Ayuk's not as much. There. I mean, he can be physical. I mean, he's a really good blocker, but he's not. He's the route runner, and but yeah. So I think, if Debo's no go, but if he's 50-50 right now, it feels like okay.
I think he'll play.
Yeah,
I think he'll play.
I feel like you might be okay, because then you feel like, well, but then if we get in, now we've got 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right.
So,
right.
We'll see. Yeah. All right. Well, all right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Look at us, 3 weeks in a row we recorded. Wow. Well, we're the hot streak team right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, but everything's coming together at the right time.
And hopefully we're both still this happy next Monday.
Yeah. If not, we will do the next one as Pagliacci, the sad clown. So
I'm not dressing up though. So.
No. No visuals. Okay. We don't have a makeup department.
Right.
But yeah, so we'll
see you on the other side next week.
Day, but yeah, we'll be back next week. Record our reactions, and then start prepping for the Super Bowl somehow.
Crazy.
Somehow. And my birthday. We'll have to start prepping for that too. So.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not going to be there for your birthday.
So everybody start thinking about what gifts you want to get me. Or find my vendor.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, folks. Have a great championship weekend.
Take me back,
Signing off.